Check version 0.23.5.464. Resuming career mode. Space station on assembly. Load Moon Surveyor. Final check over Moon Surveyor. Landing assembly. Command module. Parachute. Communication. RCS, SAS Advanced. RCS tanks. Some battery stacks. A parachute for the science station. Or the science, what is that thing called? I don't know. It's the thing that does experiments. Fuel tanks, landing assembly, decoupler. This is the mid-orbital injection sequence tanks and boosters. I don't like having to use these, but it's kind of a necessity on this one. Liquid booster with 6 extra Rocomac boosters. Go for launch. Throttle to 0. We're only going with boosters. Maintain heading, slight heading 90, roll to keep the velocity indicator on the 90-degree line. Slight pitch toward 90. Turn on SAS. Throttle up main liquid. Try to keep velocity vector on 90. It doesn't have to be straight up. It just cannot be off of the 90-degree line. Prevent having to use extra fuel to align the orbit's inclination to the lunar orbit. Above 10K, start pitching down slightly along the 90-degree heading line. Okay. And go with the solid. Check orbit injection. Apoapsis target at 80 kilometers. Start pitching down if you see it grow too fast. Those solids should run out by the time you get to 80 or 90. And it's too much. Okay. Let's discard. Deprograde. SAS on prograde. And maneuver. At apoapsis. Prograde burn. Periapsis at 91. Apoapsis at 103. Estimated burn is 2 days. That's not right. I'm thinking that the estimated burn time is incorrect. That's too much. You want a circularized orbit at about 100. Preferably less is better. Requires less delta V. Estimated burn is incorrect. I'm going to assume that it is a 1 minute. So I'm going to start the burn at 30 seconds before time to apoapsis. And actually I'm going to start it now because I feel like it's probably going to be too late. And start the next stage, full throttle. And let's see if the delta V, follow the blue marker on the nav ball. Try to keep your nose pointed in that direction through the entire burn. Okay. You don't necessarily want to start your burn right at the node. If the burn takes longer and you pass the node, you want equal time on both sides. The maneuver entry on the computer will actually allow you to fine-tune your delta V. And this is not as nice as I would like it, but it'll be a decent enough orbit for lunar injection. And 6 seconds. And shut off. I'm going to go ahead and shut it down there. Apoapsis is adequate enough. It's not as circular as I'd like, but it's good enough. But I have to make another pass orbit around Kerbal in order to be properly placed for the lunar injection. So I'm going to go ahead and shut off SAS and time warp to get around Kerbal. Okay. And let's pull this out so we can see. And go a little bit faster. Always keep your RCS and your SAS turned off when you're time warping, or you'll find yourself out of fuel and resources. Monopropellant. Oh, we're right there. This is probably going to be too late. No, it hasn't arrived. The moon hasn't risen yet, so I'm going to go ahead and hit a quick save because I'm thinking I may have to do this again. Turn ship prograde, turn SAS on to lock in the vector. And we have barely enough fuel to get the injection, but I think we should have enough to get back. There's the moon. And wait till it appears and start burn. Prograde direction. Make sure it's locked in with SAS because you're going to be checking it on the map. Hit in. Probably not as far as I'd like. This is going to be interesting. Maintain prograde, full throttle burn, till apoapsis reaches the moon's orbit. And that's not far enough. But we'll just continue on with the lander engines. We should have plenty of fuel to get back. Okay. Cut engines as soon as you see the moon's periapsis intersect. Hit the X key to do that. Time that correctly. If you don't get it timed correctly, you can always turn in retrograde and do fine adjustments. You have plenty of time. It takes an actual full day for the craft to travel along this trajectory into the moon's SOI. We're going to go ahead and disengage, make sure all SAS is off, RCS is off, and we're going to go ahead and time warp to the moon SOI. Make sure you disengage time warp right as you see it enter. And here we go. Alright. So there is the moon capture. You can add a maneuver here if you like. I typically don't because it's pretty straightforward. We want to wait till periapsis and burn in retrograde to circularize the orbit. And I'm actually going to circularize it to periapsis of about 30 kilometers. That's the region I want to go and explore. And check time to node is 1 hour if you were to actually wait in real time, but we're going to go ahead and time warp until about 3 minutes. Be very careful. The time warp will advance exponentially for each level, and see right there. You have to be very careful. This doesn't have to be too exact because 10 minutes, 9, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, and turn off time mode. Switch back over to the craft. Turn the ship in retrograde, and you'll see the marker. And turn on SAS to lock in the vector, and switch back over to the map. And actually, you can start the burn now. Might as well. You should have plenty of fuel. Start slowing it down. You want to match the moon periapsis to the target periapsis. And I'm going to adjust my pitch. It'll actually tell you how long to burn, but I tend to not trust it. And cutting at 20, which is fine. And check on the calculations. The maneuver calculations are really handy. You can always go and do a what if scenario if you want to turn the orbit, if you want to change the orbit's timing. There's all kinds of things you can do with that. And then if you want to take the maneuver off the HUD, just simply click the X. So we're going to go ahead and turn off SAS and check resources and time warp to the other side of the moon where we're going to set down the craft. And yes, I like to be pretty close. And I like to be as close to the periapsis as possible. Or I think I've already explored this biome, so I'm going to go ahead and kick it on the other side. This is probably not the most efficient way to decide which biome you want to drop down, but I've already landed there. I don't know if I'm going to land there again. So I have plenty of time. I can just go ahead and drop. And yeah, this is as good a place as any. So I'm going to go ahead and start canceling all horizontal turn the ship to retrograde. Turn in retrograde. SAS, lock in vector. And full throttle. Okay, so just continue this burn until your orbital velocity is near 0. This is a good time to probably drop the landing gear. Design these made it very difficult to click on them. Okay. Keep the nose pointed in the retrograde marker and continue burn until the velocity is near 0, as close as possible. If you have enough resources, keep your SAS on if you're having a hard time maintaining that. So 2 ways that you can see this on the map. You'll see the parabolic trajectory turn into a line, essentially. That means that all your motion at that point is straight up and down. And your velocity vector is heading directly toward the center of the moon. And oops, something happened. I don't know what I did. Only cut your engines if you see something weird like that happen. And continue. Continue canceling out the horizontal motion. Just keep the nose pointed on the retrograde marker until it reaches the top of the nav ball. And, yep. I'm at 25% throttle. And cut engines, when you see it at the top, keep SAS on. And now we're in full descent. Okay. Try to keep your speed. Don't let it get too high because then you won't have enough time to slow it down on the way down. Turn SAS off if it's being used heavily. Found that the simulation typically it varies on how much SAS it uses. I think it depends on whether or not the ship is under any kind of extreme acceleration. I try to preserve as much of my electric charge as possible. Go ahead and start canceling out that turn SAS on, cancel out the velocity. You don't want to crash. Right, we're getting real close to the ground here actually. The altitude is not an actual a reliable indicator of how close the ground is. There is an arbitrary sea level, and some areas of the moon are above that arbitrary sea level. If you see the velocity vector migrate off the top of the ball, that means you have a horizontal component, which will cause your craft to tip over if you're not careful. You want to make sure that all of your horizontal velocity component is 0 or near 0. If you have a wide enough lander, it shouldn't matter too much. I really hate using a lot of fuel at this stage, but if it's a choice between that and crashing, I'd rather burn some of the fuel. This is the part that is the most difficult, for me at least. Okay. If you've got the RCS back on, you can jump up and then so hit R to turn the RCS pack on, and then you can sort of float up to the top if you don't have a ladder. Although the maneuvering, you kind of have to get used to the maneuvering keys that are necessary. I'm not really good at the EVA portion, so. But once you get to the ladder, you can grab the ladder and then start walking up the ladder. Right when you get up to the command module, you can hit F to board. So this is the part where I observe the materials bay to get additional science points, keep the data if it's more than a transmit. You can also review the stored data, and if the transmission value is the same as the recovery value, then why not transmit it? But if the recovery value is higher, then keep the data. I think the crew report is the same. You can go ahead and transmit that too. That's why you want to keep your electric charge at a, you want to preserve that, kind of ration it. The moon ejection, it can be tricky, but if you're on the right side of the moon facing the sun, because the moon's orbiting the other way, you can actually just aim toward the orbit of along the orbit of the moon. And in this case, I can almost aim toward the sun, slightly toward the sun as I'm flying off. And since there is no atmosphere, you can start your escape burn in the opposite direction of the moon's orbit. And I have no idea which direction I'm going here, so this is going to suck. So this is hard for me to. I usually turn in the direction I want to go. I turn in the direction that I want to go, and I want to be along the line, tangent along the line of the moon's orbit, and hopefully that's pointing me in the right direction. So I'm going to go ahead and throttle the engines back up and turn in the direction of, hopefully this is going in the direction that I'm toward, away. And of course it's going in the opposite direction, so that means I have to turn around. Maybe I should have used the stars as the, yeah, let's see which one. Hopefully I'll have enough fuel. Yep, I'm burning in the direction. Away, opposite in the direction that the moon is orbiting around the Earth, because you do not want the moon to capture you again. So this can take quite some time, but if you do it right, you should have enough fuel to get back to the Earth or Kerbal. Just keep burning in the prograde direction of the trajectory. And as soon as you see the apoapsis exit the moon sphere of influence, kill the engines. Okay. That was not as efficient as I would have liked, but I should have enough fuel to get back to Kerbal. So I'm going to go ahead and turn off SAS, and I'll do a quick save. Why not? And time warp. Make sure your throttle's 0. Time warp to the Earth, the Kerbal orbit. As soon as you hit on the, you'll see it turn blue as soon as you've exited the moon's SOI and have entered the Kerbal SOI. Now this is going to be the part that I'm not sure I'm going to have enough fuel for, but we can try it. Turn on SAS, align to the retrograde marker, and begin the burn. You want to make sure that periapsis comes within, I'm shooting for 30 kilometers. I'll take 60 if I can get it. No, this is not going to work. I'm going to run out of fuel. Am I going to run out of fuel? No, hopefully not. Start trimming, throttle down as soon as you see 64. I'm going to go ahead and drop it to 34. And at this point you can time warp and have a, now if they had if they increase, had atmospheric drag damage implemented in this game, this would probably not be the way you'd want to do this. So the rest of this is fairly straightforward. Just make sure you're, if you want to do this properly, make sure your SAS is turned off. And then do a time warp. Uh-oh. Let's hope I didn't just get snagged by the moon again. That's one of the reasons why you want to make sure that the orbit that you're going is counter in the opposite direction as the moon. You do not want to be captured by the moon's SOI and pulled back in. And I think I did this. So here it appears that it drug the periapsis, the pull of the tug of the moon, actually altered my orbital trajectory. So I'm going to. So the proper thing to do here, and it really doesn't matter. The proper thing to do here is to burn prograde to extend the periapsis above Kerbal, but that's really not necessary. You just as easily land this way. Why not? Oh. So that yellow line that appears is the moon SOI. The moon's sphere of influence. It's being taking account of the Kerbal escape. Interesting. Okay. So what I ended up doing is I ended up burning a parabolic trajectory, extending it to a hyperbolic. That was weird. So time warp to the point where you're, and it'll actually turn off your time warp automatically. It says it cannot warp faster because the ship is under acceleration. It's already turned in the right direction, which is retrograde. That's the proper way to do a re-entry if you're going to be actually, if you're going to actually take this game seriously. At this point, the two parachutes that are on the command module and the science module need to be ejected as you re-enter. And it actually, I have a feeling that in the real world you'd be a burning ball. I don't think this is the appropriate way. The better way to do it is to get to apoapsis once you get it back into the Kerbin sphere of influence, is to adjust the orbit and then do a burn at periapsis or apoapsis. We're doing a burn at periapsis to circularize the orbit and then do a re-entry. I don't think anybody would do a re-entry immediately coming off of an extended elliptical orbit. At any rate, at this point, it's deploy chutes and wait for it to splash down and collect all your data. I hope you've enjoyed this video. This is my attempt to send out at least an updated version moon landing experience other than the ones that I've seen, which seem to capitalize off of some of the exploits, what I considered to be exploits, on the previous versions.